Hey there, fellow travelers. Mark here with Wolters World, and today we're in Belo Horizonte, Brazil at the Confins Airport. And today what we have for you are the don'ts of being at the airport. And I think I want to start with this don't. Don't forget to check which airport you're going to. Because in some cities you have multiple options. Like in New York, you could be at Newark or LaGuardia or JFK. If you're in Sao Paulo, Brazil, you got Congonhas. You've got, Guarulhos. There's a lot there. And some people forget to check beforehand. And I've seen people trying to get across New York City because they had the wrong airport. So make sure you see, because when you buy cheap tickets online, sometimes what they'll do is they'll find other airports that are going to give you the best deal, and you might not fly into the one you fly out of, okay? Another don't I have for you is that don't forget to check those different airports. For example, if you're flying out of Chicago, don't just check O'Hare, check Midway as well, and you might actually find other deals that can help you out. But also, don't be afraid to drive a little to find a different airport. For example, I live in one town, but I fly out of a different city's airport because they have free parking and a shuttle that will get me to the terminal without a problem. Whereas the other place by where I live, guess what? You got to pay for parking every single day. So it's not really worth it. So you want to kind of think about that and kind of judge, hey, yeah, maybe I do the free parking one a little bit farther away because it maybe saves me money in the long run. So you want to kind of think about some of these things. And speaking of parking, I will tell you this, don't think the economy parking is always your best bet, because economy parking, yeah, it is far away, and if you're going to be gone for a while, it can save you money. However, how often do those transports go back and forth? And if you're going to be only gone for a weekend, if you're only going to save maybe $10 or $15, is it maybe worth it to be able to walk out and get your car right away versus having a 30 or 40 minute wait for the bus to your parking area? So you want to kind of think about that and kind of judge it, because sometimes we do the economy parking because it's so long. Other times we do, we're going to park in the garage because we're only gone for a weekend and the price difference is only $20. So I'd rather be able to get home and get home faster than that. So just a few things to think about while I'm walking through Belo Horizonte. Now, a couple of things you need to remember when you go into the airport. Okay, one, don't think you can check in and breeze through last minute. Some airlines close their check-in 45 minutes before departure. Also, if you're at the airport, don't think your departure time is when you need to be at the gate, because of many airlines, 15 or 20 minutes before the actual departure time, they've already closed the gate. You can't even get on. You may say, but the flight doesn't leave for 20 minutes. Doesn't matter. Once that door is closed, you're kind of out of luck, so be aware of that, okay? Now, for those of you that like to park and ride, I do want you to know, don't think you can just park at a hotel and leave your car there and then go to the airport because they won't notice. Because they do notice, especially if they have one of those park at a hotel, we'll take you to the airports kind of thing. They do list who's there. You want to make sure you're checking that out because you don't want to come home and not have a car. However, on that note, if you do want to use it, some hotels, you don't even have to stay there. Just let them know and you pay a small fee, and then it's actually cheaper sometimes than staying at some of the parking garages at the airport. So something to kind of think about when you're looking for your parking for the airport. Now we're here at the airport in Riga, Latvia, and another don't I have for you is don't feel bad about going to the bar at 8 a.m. I mean, honestly, the airport is the one place that it's 5 p.m. somewhere around the world and you can have a drink and no one kind of shames you for that. So don't be afraid to go grab that morning drink. But I will tell you, don't get too close to your boarding time, because don't think that they're going to hurry up to get you your ticket or your bill. So make sure you paid ahead or you're paying as you go. So if you need to get out of there, you need to get to your gate, you can go, because I've seen a lot of tourists, they're just sitting there waiting, trying to get their bill, and they're playing leaves, okay? So don't forget to keep up on the bill tab. Now, another don't I have for you, and this is more of a safety and not upset the other travelers kind of don't, is don't stop in the middle of the concourse. You get off your plane and you start looking for the jet bridge or baggage claim or customs, and then you just stop in the middle thinking, where should I go? And people run into you. If you get a phone call, if you need to think about something, just step to the side, because otherwise you kind of cause a traffic jam and people might run into you. And I've seen a few scuffles over the years because of that. Now, another important don't to remember, especially if you're using your phone for all of your information, for your boarding passes, for your hotel reservations, I'm going to tell you this, don't expect to have plugs at the airport. Now, more and more places do have plugs and charging stations, but you don't always have them, and don't forget to make sure they actually do charge, because some are just kind of dead plugs. So don't forget to bring like a good backup battery. Like I always have a backup battery in my backpack just in case we have that. Also, don't forget to keep checking your boards. So many people, they'll check in and they'll get their boarding gate and they think that's the end all be all. Don't forget to keep checking those boards just in case they change. Another thing I think is really important is don't forget the TSA rules or the security rules when you're coming to an airport. Look, liquids, you can't have big liquids. I mean, it's been that way for 20 years or more than 20 years now. So don't get upset when they're telling you, hey, look, you can't have that liquid. And I see it all the time, people getting upset. Well, I just paid all this money for this soda. I paid all this money for this bottle of water, and now I can't take it with it. Oh, I'm like, people, it's been 2 decades. You've never been able to take those big waters on. So don't forget those rules. And also don't forget to dress for security, meaning you want to have easily slip on, slip off shoes. You want to make sure it's easy to slip out if you have your computer, to take that out of your bag. Probably don't want to have 19 layers on, because then you have to take all these different things off. They think you have too many clothes. So something to kind of think about before you come to the airport. Another note I have for you is if you're going to be going on an international flight, don't forget you may need to go through passport control before you can actually board your plane, and that can add on a significant amount of time. For example, if you're going to be flying from the Netherlands back to the US, or going through Paris, you're flying in to Paris from the US, you're going to transfer a flight within Europe, you're going to go through passport control in Paris or in Amsterdam, and sometimes those lines, maybe it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's an hour. So just know that you don't want to waste time and kind of poop around when you need to get through passport control. So once you get through security, find out where you need to go, and then go. And if you need to go through passport control, do that. Get your snacks and everything else when you get through the passport control, so you're on the other side, so you don't get stuck in a line. Because I've been there before, in like Lisbon, where a flight from Brazil came in, and we literally had 300 people that just popped up in line in front of us in the last minute, and that added literally another 35 minutes to the passport line. So be aware of that. Another airport don't I have for you when you're traveling abroad, don't think that exchanging money at the airport is going to give you the best rate. Now, sometimes you get good rates, but overall, I recommend you use your local bank debit card at an ATM, and do not, I repeat, do not take the conversion unless your home bank do the conversion, not the bank you're getting out of from the ATM. That's usually what I found gives me the best rate. However, I will say this, don't pass up that ATM at the airport so you have some cash when you are here. Because then if you need some, you have some, and you don't have to look for an ATM while you're in the city on the first day, you already have something there. But yeah, the exchange rates at the airport, don't think they're always the best. Probably shouldn't have to say this if you're watching this video, but obviously don't get too rowdy when you're at the airport, because some places have very strict rules, and you can get banned from airlines, airports, all kinds of places. So, just keep it cool. Now let's talk about when you see people running around the airport. And I'm here actually in Santiago, Chile, and I saw a guy running to catch his gate. And I gotta tell you this, don't judge people that are running for the gate. Not everyone woke up late and just got to the airport late. Sometimes they have a late connection or a missed connection or a delayed flight. It does happen. So don't hold them up, don't judge them. Just know that, hey, maybe one, they have to poop, or two, they really got to get that connection. It's not their fault. So that's one thing I want to say. And to kind of help people not miss their connections, my next don't for you is don't stand on the left on the escalator. Whether you're at any airport around the world, there's always going to be that escalator that's going somewhere. People in a hurry, don't block the escalator. So that means keep your luggage in front of you or behind you and stand on the right. So if people are in a hurry, they can go down on the left. That's one of the things that really annoys people at the airport. I've heard many a cuss word of people that were blocking the escalator. And that works the same way on the moving walkway, okay? Now, another thing I think is really important to mention is don't think that the lounge is the end-all, be-all of amazing experiences at the airport, especially these days where lounges are so full. You're waiting in line to get in there to pay $50 for what? Some half-eaten food by somebody else, or you get a couple free drinks. Is it really worth it? If you got the credit card that gets you in for free or something, they can be worth it, and sometimes it is worth it if you got a long layover. But I really think that people's obsession with the lounge is a bit much. So don't think if you don't get in the lounge, it's not a bad thing, because they're not the end-all be-all. They're not always super fantastic. But having said that, I wouldn't say don't go in the lounge at all, because sometimes it can be very helpful, especially if you got these long 8 or 9 hour layovers, which I've had before. That's when I'll shell out the money to do this. And that's why it's important to know what your lounge options are when you go some places, because you might be flying with an airline that has a lounge, and you might have different kind of bonuses on your flights depending where you are going from countries. Like we're with Delta, we get platinum status with them. We get nothing in the US, but we're in Europe, we get to go into the fancy lounges. So kind of, check that out before you go. And when you get to your destination, one thing I gotta tell you is don't just take a ride from the first person that offers you a ride. I've had that in Paris, I've had that here in Santiago in Chile, where people are like, hey, you need a ride? I can give you a ride. Don't take those. Go and find the official taxi if you want to get a taxi, or the public transportation that gets out there, all right? So do be aware of that. And also, Don't be afraid to hire a driver to pick you up, especially if you're a group of people. Sometimes hiring a driver to be there with their sign saying Mark Wolters and +5 or whatever is there for you, and it's actually cheaper than taking it with, all the people in your group. So something to think about. But, if I want to talk about things when you get to the airport, let's go to Stockholm for that part to talk about, some of the baggage don'ts and some other transportation don'ts. Another don't I have for you is when you're here at the airport, don't crowd up trying to get your luggage off the thing. Stand back so people can get through, because what happens is the whole thing gets covered with people and no one can get in, and then you smash people with your bags. Just, stand back a little bit, you'll get your stuff. Don't worry, no one's going to take it. Also, don't forget, luggage claim is going to be different depending where you are in the world. So I'm here in Stockholm right now, and you notice, Mark, why isn't your family meeting you here? Where is everybody? Where's your buddies? Well, here in Europe, you actually pick up your luggage, the checked luggage, before you exit, okay? So you're kind of behind security here. So you get your stuff, then you walk out. That's where your ride will be, your family will be. Whereas in the US, you actually exit and then you go to the baggage claim. And what blows my mind is the baggage claims in the US, anybody can just walk up and take a bag, though no one does. It's really weird, but it's just out in the open. So you want to hurry to get to where your bags are in the US, just in case. Also, a don't I have for you is don't expect very fast returns of your lost luggage. Look, your bags get lost. Just be happy they can find them. That's why it's really important when you check your baggage, make sure you keep your ticket. Make sure, you see them put the bag tag on there and have that. Also, if you have the app for the airline you're flying with, a lot of times they'll let you know, oh, your bag has been boarded on the plane. So keep track of that so you kind of know where things are. Because when you go to the lost luggage place, they can only do so much. They need to know that baggage claim number to try to search the system where the last time it was checked was. And it may take time. I know we've had luggage lost for almost a week before. I remember I had one bag come back from Lithuania and it had been opened, and literally the DVD case that was inside had DVDs taken out of it. So yeah, just know if your luggage gets lost, there's going to be some time, and maybe not everything will come back. So that's why it's important, not to pack the good stuff in the check bags. Just FYI. So another don't I have for you when you're coming to the airport is when you're leaving the airport, don't forget to check the different options you have for getting into town. A lot of people feel that, I just go and take a taxi. Well, sometimes the taxis are insane expensive. Like here in Stockholm, taking a taxi from the airport, Arlanda airport I'm at now, or the farther out airport, it's not cheap to get into town. So I'm looking at the train options or the bus options, and sometimes don't think the express version is the cheapest or best way to go places. For example, like in London, you can take the Heathrow Express in from Heathrow into London. It's really expensive, and the thing is, you could take it for like £4 or £5. You could just take the tube in. It takes about an hour, so it's a little bit longer, but it is an option. Also, look for buses that go into town, especially in cities like in Europe. You have a ton of like private charter buses that'll come in for a fraction of the price, especially if you're going to be taking one of those cheaper airlines. There's sometimes deals with it, but I would say is don't forget to look into that before you go, so you have an idea of what you need to do when you're looking to leave the airport. But also, when you get to the airport, don't forget to take a picture of where you parked, because you'll be surprised how much you forget on your vacation or on your trip abroad. Like, did I park in the C terminal parking lot or B terminal parking lot? I don't know where it is. That's why it's always a good idea to take a picture of the sign by where your car is, so you have that. I actually text Jocelyn the parking spot number, so that when I get back, I can scroll back through my messages from her. It says where I was. I also have the pictures as well, but I take so many pictures with my phone and stuff. It's easier to find it than text messages. So now we're here at the Kalmar Airport in Chile, and I think another thing you want to think about is, let's say you have a layover at the airport. If you have a really long one and the airport actually has really good transportation connections, you might want to go into town for the day. I know for me, I used to fly from the US to Lithuania, and I always have like a 6 or 7 hour layover in London. And so what I do is I just take the tube in, go to have lunch with a friend, and then take the tube back out, and I was okay. Places like Amsterdam are very easy to do that. Brussels is very easy to do that. So you want to kind of think about that. But what's important if you're going to do this, make sure you consider transportation time. I'm not going to do this if I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil, because the traffic is insane. I might not get back in time. Also, the security lines, because you have to go through security again when you come back. that can add up there, so you want to be careful with that, okay? But that's one thing you could do. Also, another thing I would say is don't poo-poo the, minute suites or the hotels in the airports, especially if you got these long layovers, because then you can go and relax. I know in Atlanta, we've gone before where we just rent it for a couple hours, just so we're not walking around all the time. We kind of a little bit of relaxation, get a little rest, and then out and kind of refreshed. Sometimes you actually have hotels in the airport that'll actually have day rates you can do, and so you have a bit more space. You can freshen up, shower. It can be really helpful. Now, another thing I've seen here, like I'm here at 6 o'clock in the morning and there's nothing open. And I want to tell you this, don't expect many food options early in the morning or late night at airports because they're more geared towards the lunch crowd, I find. And so you want to be kind of aware of that. So sometimes you have those early flights, maybe grab a sandwich and put it in your bag so you have something to snack on when you're at the airport, because otherwise you might be just sitting here waiting for the coffee place to open. Now, some places, the coffee place are the only things that are open, but I just want to give you a heads up because I know, like, for example, in Atlanta, if you're there Saturday night or Sunday night, there's literally nothing open. So you're basically eating whatever's in the kiosk or the beef jerky and potato chips in the magazine store. Now, what if you're at the airport and you get a delay? One thing I want to tell you is don't expect always to get a voucher for like, oh, you're going to be delayed for a while. Here's some free food. Here's some stuff. Don't always expect those vouchers. But if you know you should be getting one, don't be afraid to go up and ask for one. All right, because you are entitled in certain countries. Some places you're not, some places you are, and it depends on the amount of time. So that's something to think about. But one thing I'll tell you, if you get those vouchers, don't think they last. Like literally, some of them are only valid for a few hours. We've actually been stuck in Chicago, and they gave us 6 vouchers, and 3 of them were already expired by the time we actually tried to use them. And also, don't think all the restaurants at the airport will take the vouchers the airlines give you. So that's kind of an important thing to note. And when you're looking for the food, I think another important thing, and I think we all know this, is don't expect normal pricing when you're at the airport. They have what's called captive pricing. You have no other choice but to buy whatever they have here. I mean, there's a restaurant down at the end that's going to open up, and I can get a hamburger and a beer for the equivalent of $16. I'm in Chile. It should not be $16 for a small hamburger and a beer, but I'm at the airport and I don't have any other options. So that's one of the things you have to consider. And that's why sometimes you want to walk around and see what are my food options and realize maybe going to Chili's or going to like a little bit, like a fast casual restaurant, price-wise is actually better than going to McDonald's. So you want to think about that. Now, another important thing to remember, and I'm sure I've talked about this a lot of times about your gate, and that is don't think your gate is always going to stay the same. I've literally been waiting to board a plane, and then last minute they're like, oh, sorry, we've moved actually E17. We got to go, to a whole different terminal. So it's always good to be paying attention, even if you're like right before boarding, just to make sure, look at the gate and say, hey, is it still there? Okay, it's still there. Okay. And like I said, always keep checking those gates because you never know. Like, look at those boards. It might get moved. Oh, and just a safety thing, when you're going through security, don't joke around. Like, nowhere in the world is it fun to mention certain explosive devices or anything like that, because that is something that the security people don't joke around with. And that's one thing I've seen, whether we've been traveling in Asia, South America, the US, Europe, okay? I mean, it sounds silly, but you'll be surprised how many people think it's funny to be like, let's talk about this here now. It's not really a thing you want to do. So I hope this video helps you with a few do's and don'ts of going to the airport. If you want to learn more, maybe the don'ts of when you check in or the don'ts of travel, check us out on our website at woltersworld.com. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, all those places. And if you want to learn more, please subscribe. We really appreciate it, and we really appreciate the likes too. So have a great time, and I'll say bye from here in Calama Airport in Chile. And if I haven't said enough, to finish off, don't forget to check the boards to make sure your gate hasn't changed. So I'm taking off from here in Guarulhos in Sao Paulo, Brazil. What are some other don'ts that people should know about coming to the airport? Let us know in the comments below to help other travelers have a great time traveling, even if it's just at the airport.